What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Happy Skews Day to you. It's December 3rd, 2024. I'm Trey. That's Mark. How you doing, Mark? You feeling the holiday spirit? Christmas, fired up?
Yeah, my wife finally got me to start watching Christmas movies. We watched Hot Frosty the other day, the Netflix one about the sexy snowman. It was fun.
I've
Uh,
never heard of that, but that does sound neat. What's your all-time favorite Christmas movie?
Christmas Vacation, I think.
Mine too. That's also
Yeah.
mine. That was our like traditional yearly watch with me and my dad and my sister. We watched that movie every year growing up, and it's one, and still holds up, still hilarious to me to this day. Randy Quaid hit him when cousin Eddie's introduction to that movie. Like I don't think there's any other scene where a character comes out like spitting more fire, just throwing just nothing but fastballs one after another from the time he shows up to that entire introductory scene. It's so goddamn shame that he's insane. It's kind of on point for what we're going to be talking about tonight. Got some
Yeah.
Q lunacy coming up, and I'm sure Randy
Yeah.
Quaid is super into
He's fired up,
all of
baby.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Trump's nominee to fill a non-vacant role running the FBI, which is the guy's already sitting in that chair, is not supposed to be able to be removed. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Kash Patel, one of the funnier, dangerous lunatics that Trump's trying to give power to. We'll
So,
see if
so
it
real
works.
quick, the FBI, it's not supposed to be like cabinet offices and stuff. The FBI director, it's supposed to be like 10-year terms, and then
Right.
isn't that a similar thing with the d bag who runs the mail now, the postal service? Wasn't that and so like, and Biden didn't replace that guy, right? Like he stayed in
No,
there.
the problem, the Postal Service is a separate quasi-private entity, which is overseen by a government board. The board can fire Louis DeJoy. The president
Okay,
can't.
all right,
So, I all the things they didn't bother getting done. I'm not
yeah,
even worried about the fucking post office right now. But
okay, all right.
yeah, I wanted before we get to the show, I want to talk about South Korea for a minute. Did you follow today's event today? Well, tomorrow's events. Tomorrow,
Yeah,
it's tomorrow there.
because it
But
is. So
what
we're in
happened?
yesterday. I couldn't remember which
Yes.
which way it went, but
So
yeah,
tonight, which is this morning,
right, yeah,
Tuesday night in South Korea, there was kind of an attempted coup. The president, who is a guy named Yoon, he was elected as the face of an anti-feminist reactionary backlash, which feels familiar.
hmm,
He went on TV late tonight, this morning, and declared martial law. This will also sound familiar to you. He vowed to eliminate anti-state forces as he struggles against an opposition that controls parliament and that he accuses of sympathizing with communist North Korea. All right. His basic beef, as far as I can tell, because the opposing party controls parliament, he's just basically gridlocked. They won't let him have his budget. Plus, there's an ethics investigation into his wife's handbag, and
yeah. It's
like
worth overthrowing a government for and installing yourself as
just
dictator. People are mad about
all
her
these guys are the
her
fucking same,
maids.
man. My wife's purse. I got to overthrow the
Yeah.
government because people are getting nosy about my wife's purse. All right. So the reaction is what I want to talk about because it was immediate and forceful, even though it happened late night there. Uh, Lee Jae-myung, the first name is the last name over there, so let's call him Lee. He's
Right.
the leader of the opposition party, which is also called the Democratic Party. There, he put out a statement that said, "Tanks, armored personnel characters, and soldiers with guns and knives will rule the country. The economy will collapse irretrievably. My fellow citizens, please come to the National Assembly," and they did. People showed up in force to confront and shame a bunch of police and troops who weren't even really clear what was. I saw photos. They had this blue training mags. A lot of them didn't even have live ammunition, and so which is good, of course. And obviously, I don't know if they would have wanted to pull the trigger, but having a military that refuses to shoot its own citizens is kind of an important point in fending off autocracy, which is what I was thinking about watching all this. There's
Right.
also there was a coup attempt in Turkey in 2016 where the military was told it was a training exercise. So they also didn't have live ammunition, so it's going to take a while to sort out what actually happened here. But Lee, anyway, the leader of the Democratic Party, he live streamed himself scaling the walls of the National Assembly to get around military barricades, so he could vote to overturn the president's martial law. I was just thinking about that, trying to imagine Nancy Pelosi doing parkour
Right.
on January 6th.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. It just feels like if this same thing happens in America, our Democratic Party would just be like, well, but they can't do that though, and then
Right.
just release an official statement, and be like, well, this isn't. They're not supposed to do that, and then
Someone do
and
something.
then they'll just do it,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
that would be that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I saw people on Reddit saying like it was something about whether or not the main military, I don't know, Secretary of Defense or the equivalent, was on the side of this autocratic president or not, and that would matter. But but it pretty much, it's like, I mean, it's like basically over, isn't it? Like he did this and they've like squashed it.
But yeah, he did agree to they overrode Parliament can override martial law there. They did that, and then tomorrow morning when he woke up, so confused. Wednesday morning in South Korea, he put out a statement saying he had withdrawn his order for martial law. But what happened in the meantime was like a reverse January 6th, where like the legislators were like barring the cops from getting into the building and spraying them with fire extinguishers. These are special forces and like city police. I also learned a new word from South Korea, and it's called ajusis. These are like it's like an affectionate word for like uncles, pre-papas. All the uncles went down to the Capitol and were shaming like the 18-year-old conscripts for being assholes because they have a living. They escaped the military dictatorship in 1980, so a lot of them have a living memory of what that's like and don't fucking want it again. Right. U.S.-backed military dictatorship, by the way. I was watching like because it happened late night over there and no one saw it coming because again it's just about his wife's purse and budget shit. Like there was an American journalist for a tech outlet I read called The Verge. She was over there for I don't know a conference or some tech stuff. She's like, well, fuck it. She's Korean American, Sarah John, so she went down to the Capitol to cover it. She was drunk. So well, she's she's been partying, so she's live blue skying the fucking coup attempt, and it was just like the whole thing was such a like I find it these kind of things are both farcical and tremendously meaningful when people like resist. I feel like to me, but like the funniest part to me was like late at night the Ministry of Education put out a statement saying they decided not to close schools, so the kids didn't even get a coup day off. So yeah, like I said, he lifted martial law, but I wanted to point out considering what's happening in our country right now. It took 2.5 hours for the National Assembly, their parliament, to gather a majority of members, 190 out of 300, and generate a unanimous vote, 190 out of 190, to vote down the emergency martial law order.
Right. Yeah, and it's just like you just know that would not happen here. No. Like that.
We just experienced it. Like right. After January 6th, Congress went home for a long weekend. Didn't start impeachment proceedings for a week, which then took another month to do. And then when they handed off the Senate for the trial, the Senate went home for Valentine's Day because they had plans with their spouses.
Mm-hmm. Had to buy some purses or whatever. But it's still, I mean, just that this shit is even happening. Vibes are great. Vibes are wild around the world right now. So it's like this dude's authoritarian and was elected as like a backlash to a version of woke-ism over there, right? I'm sure that's not what they call it, but similar thing, and immediately tries to just stage a coup, but they managed to put it down. But it's just shit's just so weird.
It looks like they're going to try to impeach him, which they're going to get done. We'll know the result by the end of the weekend. Of course, like they have like a conservative like Supreme Court kind of body that gets to decide whether the impeachment and removal is upheld. But like just a fascinating country because they seem to alternate back and forth between like centrist liberal governments who do technocratic stuff like our Democrats do, and then insane right-wing reactionaries they immediately have to put in jail. So like
you said it was a reaction to it was an anti-feminist reaction. Is this that what's it called? Is this that movement? Isn't that a Korean thing where women are like sexually boycotting men or whatever? Do you know what I'm talking about? Because I've seen women in this country talk about it. It's got a name, but I can't remember what it's called. But like.
I know China's gotten the forgotten women or whatever, leftover women. But I don't really everything I know about South Korean culture and politics I can fit on a note postcard. But I do know that they got their whole country into like internet cafes. They're all internet addicted. There's a huge incel movement, and this guy Yoon was known as the face of the incels. He was kind of like the.
It's called 4B or 4 No's, and it's a radical feminist movement in South Korea. It refers to. It's defining 4 tenets, which all start with the Korean language term for no. And the 4 things are its proponents, its followers do not date men, get married to men, have sex with men, or bear children with men. And that's the 4 things that they're refusing to do. And you said it was anti-feminist backlash. I wondered if it was a backlash to that specifically or whatever.
But. Yeah. Globally, young men have agreed the government should assign me a girlfriend. And
Right. Yeah.
what they won't do to get one is work out, brush their teeth, read a book, and be nice. So
Yeah. Well, it's just they're owed that. You know what I mean? That's
uh-huh.
how all their papaws were. It's how things have always worked. You just get a woman at some point because where else are they going to go? What else are they going to do?
Mhm.
But I guess they feel differently nowadays. I don't know. Shit is wild, but here we are. Continuing on with the show. Producer Matt is with us doing his thing back there behind the scenes. Back once again. This is Weekly Skews. Before we continue, of course, a couple quick things. If you want to see me do stand up comedy live and in person, and you should want to do that, it's been hitting for people, myself included. Go to TreyCrowder.com, check out my upcoming dates. I'm staying here in California, but the northern part this weekend, Santa Cruz, San Fran, Sacramento. Then back home for the holidays in Nashville next weekend and rounding out 24 with an awesome show in Chicago, Illinois at the Den Theater. Whole lot of dates already up for 2025 already, too. They're on the website, so go to TreyCrowder.com and check them out. Come see me. Also, if you want to support this program and get some more of it, you can go to weeklyskews.com/more to sign up on our Patreon. It's $5 a month. Get you access to 2 full-length bonus episodes. We got another one coming up later this week. We often too much happens in this country for us to reasonably cover every Tuesday, so we catch up on these bonus shows. It's just this show, but more of it. But we also do Skew and A's at times and answer your burning questions. So if you want to get some more Skews in your life and support the show in the process, sign up on Patreon. As for this, tonight's episode, as Mark already said, we'll be talking about the Trump's big appointee to head up the FBI. He's still trying to fill out his oops all lunatics administration over there, and just sliding new people in every day, each one more crazy than the last. And this guy goes by the name of Kash Patel, and he's got some truly wild shit in between the ears. But before we get to that, first we begin, as always, with the Daily Dumbass. Matt, graphic, please. Tonight's DD. People who don't understand that the best way to deal with dumb bullshit is by doing even more dumb bullshit. This is everybody's favorite, the OG, Joe Manchin.
As a father, I don't know of a father that wouldn't have done the same thing. What I would have done differently, my recommendation as a counsel would have been, why don't you go ahead and pardon Donald Trump for all his charges and make it, it had gone down a lot more balanced, if you will. I'm just saying, wipe them out.
What do you think this does for his legacy?
I don't know. From that standpoint, it makes it difficult.
All right.
That is classic Joe Manchin.
So the way to make life fair for Americans is to balance your pardon of your own son with the pardon of the incoming president who's never going to suffer any legal repercussions for anything anyway, right? Like, there are only 2 people in America, and they are Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and those are the people we should be worried about. The reaction to, like, Biden pardoning Hunter was fucking insane. Let's look at this headline here that some The Economist put out. Joe Biden abused of medieval power to pardon his son. Okay, I know. It made it sound like he invoked prima nocta, or like that he beheaded his wife so you could remarry someone who could give him a male heir. What the fuck is?
Is it like the thumb? He held his thumb out and then turns it up at the last second and spares his son. That's a classic. Basically. That's even more. That's even older than medieval right there. That's antiquity shit. But yeah, I knew as soon as the news broke that he was doing this, I knew there would be an insane reaction, obviously, like from the right, because they react that way to everything, but especially anything Hunter Biden or the Biden crime family related. But like, I don't know. I'm having trouble really caring very much about it. I know that there's
that's the same take.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, go ahead. Let's get further into it. We'll talk about it as we go.
Here in reality, talking about pardoning Trump, he's a convicted felon who just received a pardon, basically, that he preemptively granted himself by turning the Supreme Court into his personal injury attorneys. And also in reality, like, we live in a deeply diseased society where presidents always pardon people that are supportive of them or associated with them, like not just a short list. Ford pardoned Nixon. G.H.W. Bush pardoned the Iran-Contra crew. Clinton pardoned Mark Rich and his half-brother. Mark Rich was like, I don't forget, he was doing money laundering for Iran or some shit. Trump pardoned Bannon, Flynn, Roger Stone, and his son-in-law's father, Charles Kushner. Do you remember what Charles Kushner did, Trey?
No.
He was being investigated by Chris Christie, when he was U.S. attorney, for like financial fraud stuff, and his brother-in-law was going to testify against him. So he honey trapped him with a male prostitute, filmed them having sex, and sent the videotape to his own wife, trying to blackmail him into not testifying.
No, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, and Trump
I
just
missed
appointed
that one.
Trump appointed Charles Kushner ambassador to France. So.
Which kind of ironic, didn't you tell, or no, maybe I think Joe told me, it's like honey traps generally don't work in France. You ever heard that? Or it's like that
Because
strategy.
we're not ashamed of adultery.
Yeah, right. Pretty much, yeah. So that strategy it's not efficacious in France, I've heard. So
Well,
I can't decide whether
congratulations
that's
to
ironic or appropriate that this guy got that job.
Yeah, so I guess you won't be able to blackmail anybody in France, but like, but he also is an extremely blackmailable guy, and like, I don't know if the CIA and the State Department are gonna let him read their cables. They probably shouldn't. And go back to the Hunter the Hunter for a second. Like, I can't figure out a reason I should give a shit.
Right.
Like, the frauds and monsters that get pardoned regularly. It's like it feels like we can't have any sort of measured discourse in this country where it's like to me, my take is it's not ideal, but whatever, right? But
right. Yeah, like in a vacuum, removing all context, everything, like a president pardoning his own son because it's his son or whatever is like, yeah, it's like a bad look. But with Hunter Biden in particular, everything about him has been so farcical and undeserved, most of it, like on this level. I remember when it first happened, we were talking about it, and we had all these quotes from all these lawyers and stuff saying that like the things that Hunter was charged with the paperwork shit, like no one had ever been charged. People don't even get charged with, let alone, privileged people. Like even poor people don't get charged with the shit that he got charged with. In this country, they'll charge poor people with everything. So it's, it was.
There's literally never been, like, one of his charges was like he had to fill out a federal form to buy a gun, and the form asked if you're a drug addict, and he lied in the form saying he wasn't a drug addict. But drug addicts lie about, like, no one else has ever been prosecuted for that.
Right, exactly. But it is one of those things where it's like, and I know that in Biden's official statement he put out about it, I don't remember exactly his wording, but he basically talked about that, and he's like, look, this was always kind of bullshit, and it was politically motivated, and like them latching on that. It's like, oh, so now they admit that things are politically, now they care about, the weaponized justice system and partisan politics in the justice system. Like they're, they'll turn it around that way when it's like obviously very different, but that's just not how anything ever works. You know what I mean?
No.
They'll definitely latch on to
right.
That part
it's
of
like,
it.
It's like I said, like I really don't care. But since people want to, make me think about it, I guess my thought process is trying to have a sane discussion. Like I was watching, like there was like a right to die bill being debated in the UK last week, and there was a sane, measured discussion about it. It wasn't partisan because these things don't break down upon on conservative liberal tracks over there generally. And then everybody voted their conscience, and I was like, oh man, I know they're generally as crazy as us often, but that was like beautiful to see. Prue Leith was on TV talking about it from Baking Show. Just like, okay.
When's the last time we had anything like that over here that you can think of? Like an issue like that comes up and it plays out that way? Because it feels like in this country, it's like any time some new things in some new like debate enters the public discourse, it's like the lines get drawn. It gets codified in one way or the other. Like this side is what the liberals think, this is what the conservatives think, and then everybody just like goes to their separate ends of the dance floor and just
right-wing media plugs it into a culture war framework. Out comes some bullshit, and everybody has to take a side on it. Where it's just that's probably fine, not a big deal. So anyway, all my thoughts about this are as follows. All right, the president probably shouldn't pardon a family member for crimes that he definitely did actually commit, even though if the charges are bullshit. Also, if he had a different last name, he wouldn't have been prosecuted at all because, as Biden pointed out, it's just because he's his son he was prosecuted, and Joe obviously has some guilt about that. But also, way less people should be in prison in general. Mercy's good. We're far too bloodthirsty as a society. Mm-hmm. But on that note, just letting Hunter out feels unfair. And a big disgrace here is that Joe Biden's only pardoned 26 people as of the time he pardoned Hunter. The American criminal justice system is like packed with people that are treated way more unfairly than Hunter fucking Biden.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's the part that, is hard to reconcile or whatever is that, like you said, there's, well, shitload of people out there who definitely deserve a pardon as much or more so than Hunter Biden did. And so it's like him only doing it for his son. Although, I mean, it's not ever going to get to that level, but like generally, don't they, every president, they always do their pardons right before they leave, right? But generally, isn't it like closer to like the end, like closer to the next inauguration or something like that? Like, so.
Right, it's usually around Christmas or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So, he might throw a few more out there. Who knows? But that's
Sure,
it's
he
like
should.
the whole like people have been saying it's like, fuck, you got all these powers now, Joe. You're a lame duck. Fucking take the gloves off. Go bananas. Break without, you know what I mean? Break with some of these norms you're so tied to or whatever. And it's like, this feels like an example of that. But it's like, if this is the only only time he does it, it's the only thing they use it for, that also will be frustrating. It's like, no, man, just, you know, keep rolling. I would do it and put out statements that are just like, yeah, fuck if you like it or not. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Fire me? You know what I mean? Just talk shit, but rub it in their face. I don't give a damn, but don't just stop with just getting your boy out of jail, but he probably would.
Yeah. But another thought I had was like the class of people who probably, like, even though I think way less people should be in prison, the class of people that should be more of in prison are white collar people who commit paperwork crimes, like Hunter did.
Good point. Yeah.
Like, Hunter's like, one of his charges was for lying on his taxes. Now he paid back the money and he paid interest penalties or whatever. So most people don't go to prison in that defense, but I think cheating your taxes is bad. But also there are paperwork crimes that have real victims, like lying on an EPA report or laundering money for drug cartels, right? So that's part of it.
I talked about white collar crime on an episode of Putting on Airs with Corey once, and so I was like doing some reading about it, and there's like a Business Week article or something that was like touting the fact that white collar crime is just down tremendously. They were saying in recent years, or whatever.
No one investigates it,
right? Or charge. Yes, it's like clearly it's like when COVID numbers were down in Florida or whatever, because they weren't testing anybody or acknowledged that it exists. But then that's clearly what's happening with white collar crime too. But they were trying to frame it as like, not even that big of a deal. It barely even happens, but it's just allowed to happen.
Talking about, you brought up the norms thing, talking about how we're dying of norms. The real way to fucking solve this problem was Trump appointed a special counsel right before he left office just to harass Hunter, and Biden just let him be in place for appearance's sake. And the real thing was like, you want to stop the weaponization in this sort of environment where it's both sidesism all the way down, you kind of just have to do the right thing and hope it sorts itself out. And letting this guy just fuck around with tax dollars to harass one guy who happens to be your son was probably stupid, and you should not have let him do it, but whatever. So, another part of this is like the media reaction to it, as if like precedent matters anymore, not understanding we're through the looking glass. Like, here's a piece: Trump uses Hunter Biden pardon to hint potential clemency for January 6th insurrectionists. He was going to do this anyway. He literally campaigned on doing this. You don't need to play stupid.
Right. To me, that was like I thought everyone agreed that was a foregone conclusion, was that he was going to do that, whether this happened or not.
And he has the absolute power to do so, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop him. And I don't know, maybe it'll be fine. Maybe they'll just go back to their lives, running car dealerships and doing real estate scams. So, so he finally did break one norm, and it kind of showed maybe he sort of gets it now. In some ways, this just shows a little bit of somebody getting it. That like. As far as him pardoning Hunter, I think when you signed up to be president of the United States, you signed up to make some extremely stupid, immoral choices. And no one made you be president. You agreed to voluntarily check into hell as soon as you die to be the U.S. president. And die stressed out, right? So part of that includes maybe letting your own son fucking die in prison, okay? That's the deal with the devil you made to have power. You don't get to just do whatever the fuck you want unless you're Donald Trump, right? But like, also as a human, I understand if you let your own worst enemy, who promised to start tribunals with being your kid's jailer, then your faith in democracy is just fucking cute and adorable. But despite the right-wing memes, I need to point out here that like Jeffrey Epstein died in prison while Trump was president, and Bill Barr, who knew Jeffrey Epstein since he was a kid, was the Attorney General. So I don't blame him, but like, why is this the one? Do you know? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like, I think it's pretty simple. I mean, you already said it. I mean, it's his son. He feels some guilt about it because he feels like it's only happening to him because he's his dad, which is true. And also, maybe not. Maybe it wouldn't be. but I do feel like it would be different if the circumstances of his crime and everything were different. You know, like if it was. I do think he also has that leg to stand on, at least for some people. The whole like, literally no one else even gets charged with this. This is bullshit to begin with, you know. So
you're right, but you're still talking in facts. Like this is politics. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, but also like if if you'd have paired Hunter's pardon with a pardon of everyone in prison for nonviolent drug offenses, in federal prison for nonviolent drug offenses, or like Joe Biden is technically anti-death penalty, right? Remember at the end of Donald Trump's first term when they did a speed run and tried to execute everybody on federal death row, even though the federal government hadn't executed anybody in like decades because they wanted to kill people. He could commute all their sentences to life in prison right now.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I mean that would hit for me. I would love that.
Right.
I agree. Yeah, that is the frustrating part is that you just expect that isn't going to happen.
He could also be signing a bunch of executive orders to Trump-proof more shit, you know, which I don't know. But like, but also like the idea that the pardon is going to stop them from going after Hunter is also kind of adorable and proof he doesn't get it. Like,
yeah, I wondered about that too. Because is it like I'm law dumb? Is it a thing where it's like it only applies to this specific thing? Like any other thing they want to like come after him for whatever they can, or is it? Because I don't know how that works.
He gave a blanket pardon for a time period that ended like midnight last night or something, or whenever he issued it, like December 1st.
Oh.
Like so, like he can be charged for any crime he commits going forward, of course.
Right.
But also, like, what's going to stop them from like fabricating a crime or figure out something he did they can overcharge him for like they did this time, right? It's also like. Does everybody remember the Supreme Court decision that lets the president murder now? Like, it's pretty funny to pardon Hunter in an environment where Trump's remaining now legal revenge scheme is to just fucking kill him.
Yeah, it's one of I feel like another. On that note, like the idea, like, I mean, make them prove it otherwise. Make them prove me wrong. But I feel like if Biden did try, I'm not talking about sending SEAL Team 6 after Trump or whatever. But if he did try to do something extreme because of that Supreme Court ruling, like you're saying, it's like, oh, they pardon Hunter, they'll fucking find a way. They'll still go after him. They'll do whatever they want anyway. I kind of feel that way about that ruling too. You know what I mean? Like that it applies to Trump. They meant it to apply to Trump and no one else. Because who's gonna have to determine that if he did try to like utilize that? It would go back to the same Supreme Court, right? And they would just be like, well, this was not an official act, clearly,
right?
And so so like they just find some way around it, like nothing. There are no fucking rules or anything anymore.
Right.
Like
but Joe Biden's going to end up in prison anyway, probably. So like
I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying like you think through the ramifications of all this shit. It's like, why do I care if Joe Biden gets arrested for murder? I don't fucking care. You know, I'm not advocating anything here. Don't dress me, FBI Secret Service. I'm just saying like you think through this shit. Like Joe Biden's 150 years old. He's going to be dead soon. Fucking do stuff. So, but talking about how to actually protect Hunter if you want to keep him safe, because this isn't going to work. Like, you probably want to use like a series of like LLCs to hide the money trail to buy him like a nice quiet house off the grid in one of those suspiciously blonde neighborhoods in Argentina. But like, because if they want to get him, they'll get him. You got to remember on right wing media, Hunter's something like Jeffrey Epstein, Cobra Commander, and Le Chiffre from James Bond movies all rolled in one. So I guess let's talk about the guy who's going to be leading the effort to take down Hunter El Chapo Osama bin Biden, which is Kash Patel.
I'm kind of surprised I haven't heard any of them use Osama bin Biden or anything like that. It kind of flows well, you know. But anyway,
it does. Yeah, I had fun thinking of it. So again, we already have an FBI director who was also appointed by Donald Trump a few years ago, who's supposed to still be in the job, although everyone's just sort of ignoring that fact, and like that if anybody else did this, it'd be a huge scam. Do you know that we've never had a Republican head of the FBI, Trey? I mean, a Democratic head of the FBI,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I did know that only because of this having come up. Yeah, right. It's one of those things. It's like even when they're appointed by Democrats, whatever, right? It's always been Republicans that get the job. So, because that's the type of thing they do. It's like, well, that's it's reaching across the aisle or whatever the hell. But
yeah, as we tell you about Kash Patel tonight, I want you to keep in your head that it's definitely going to be hilarious when in 2028 or 2029 when a Democrat takes office, they keep Kash Patel on because of norms. Right.
I mean, that's what's happened with the current one, right? Like you said, the current FBI director was appointed by Trump. Right?
Yeah.
And so he just,
and he wasn't crazy.
Because that's right. Because that's how it's supposed to work. But Trump don't give a shit how it's supposed to work.
I think they might have relented because he was trying to get around anybody having FBI background checks to be in the Trump 2 administration. But I think they relented on that. But it was like deeply funny to me. You're going to put a guy in charge of the FBI who couldn't pass an FBI background check. But we're once again just permanently at the intersection of stupid and dangerous, and we got to figure out which way it's going to go.
Right.
So one thing I want to start with that everybody should know about Kash Patel is he used to work with. Let's watch this clip if you got it, Matt. It'll be self-explanatory.
And it's simply as follows. What did you do in the Trump administration? We're going to do the opposite. Border, the forever wars, the narcotics trade. And yes, I do know a little something about human trafficking. The human trafficking portfolio fell underneath me in the counterterrorism shop where I was the head. And I worked with Tim Ballard at the White House to stamp out human and child sex trafficking.
You can pause it, So do you remember Tim Ballard, right?
Tim Ballard is the guy from that Jim Caviezel movie that we talked about, right?
Yeah, Jim Caviezel.
What was it called?
Sound of Fury or something. I thought one of those. I'd have to look it up. He was the head of a group called Operation Underground Railroad that would crowdfund these live stream stunts where they do raids to save trafficked children, which they never actually did. They actually ended up what they were doing basically was paying. They were buying children and acting like they were saving them, but what they were doing was priming the pump, increasing demand for trafficked children. Anyway, Ballard got removed from Operation Underground Railroad because what he was doing was actually doing sex trafficking, because the women he would take with him to play his wives to all these foreign country raids, he'd prod them into sex after flying them there and taking away their passports or whatever, because they needed to really pretend to be his wife.
It's always the ones you most expect, isn't it?
Right. So as far as who Kash is, he's from New York, grew up Hindu. He went to the University of Richmond undergrad, just like my uncle did, go Spiders. He went to law school, then he was a public defender, then a federal public defender. Then went to work at the Department of Justice in their national security, one of their national security teams, and he was a liaison to Joint Special Operations Command. So I imagine his job was writing memos around how you should shoot more civilians because it's good.
Public defender, that's kind of wild, right? That's sort of unexpected. Right. I feel like.
Yeah. He could have he had a real could have been a good guy. Could chose to go the other way.
I guess maybe he started to go down a good guy path and was like, "This is bullshit. I'm not getting any fucking any good perks or kickbacks or anything from this." So fucking From there, he went to be a staffer for Devin Nunes in the House. If you remember Nunes before he left to go run True Social, but he's the congressman who tried to subpoena Twitter to tell him who was running an account pretending to be his pet cow. Remember that? I mean, I remember him, but I don't remember that part of it. No. I don't know how you keep all this insanity in your head over the past 8 years.
It don't hit, dude. It does not.
You would run out of room at some point.
Yes, yes. So when he worked for Nunes, one of his big things was he went hard after the FBI for its investigation of the Trump campaign's connections with Russia. So that put him on Trump's radar. So he got hired. The first Trump administration, he worked for the National Security Council, Director of National Intelligence, and the Secretary of Defense. He had all three of those jobs in a year and a half. So he obviously really hits to work with. Patel authored a memo at one point arguing that it was disloyal for then Defense Secretary Mark Esper to oppose a request by Trump to deploy military troops against American citizens who were protesting police violence back during the George Floyd protests.
Right. So Trump wanted to deploy the military against the George Floyd protesters. The Secretary of Defense at the time was like, I don't know if we should do that. And Kash Patel put out a memo. It was like, hey, stop being a bitch.
Right.
You're being disloyal. Who cares about the morality or ethical nature of it? It's like the king has decreed that you should do this, and therefore you should do it.
The constitutionality, or even be able to think 2 steps ahead. What comes next? Do you want to live in a country where the military shoots unarmed civilians in the streets? The downstream effects of all this stuff that apparently only 98% of people, none of whom are in government, can think about. He's also a conspiracy theorist, which we're going to talk about. Here's Kash on appearing on Glenn Beck's protests, which
I never believed that the CIA killed Kennedy.
No. You're talking to a guy that's read the entire JFK file.
You've seen all the secret stuff?
I've seen all of that, and I've seen the 7 pages of the 9/11 report. I've seen it all.
You don't say that to people that you can't tell what you saw.
All right, so it's deeply funny that he thinks the CIA would kill the president and write it down.
Yeah.
The real problem,
criminal conspiracy.
Right. Because the real problem with whatever was going on in the CIA in the 60s is not that necessarily the CIA killed JFK. It's that they can't honestly tell you they didn't because nobody would know. They're all operating like little terror cells and shit. So like, anyway, it's not good. We're not going on a JFK rabbit hole, but like these guys cannot help but run their fucking mouths, dude. Like it's like that's a big like these are people in charge. We want to put in charge of our national secrets, and he's going on fucking Beck's podcast and talking about the JFK assassination,
bragging about it. Yeah, about how he
release it, man. If you have it, release it, so all of us get to see it. Don't fucking allude to shit you can't. Anyway, whatever. So
it's probably maybe not. This dude's actually been in these positions, but that's the type of thing that I feel like guys like that would say, and it's like what it is it's like something they saw posted on some forum they're on that like professes to be the full unredacted, copy of these files or whatever he found on the dark web and then read them all or whatever. And he's like, I've seen the whole thing. I've seen all of it. You wouldn't believe the information that's in there because that's how a lot of conspiracy theorists work.
Yeah. I would like to see the 9/11 report though if you have it. So the page they took out about Saudi Arabia. So Patel has a sideline or the last few years when he wasn't working in government, when he was like he's been hawking like brain pills and shit on the internet. He also likes to write children's books about Donald Trump.
Sure.
He's written three
any of these children's books rage against liberal groomers indoctrinating this nation's children with their political ideology and thus ruining America in doing so? Because that's would be about right. I know that's not what they're about. It's just funny that they, we're the ones that indoctrinate the kids and all that, and then they put out all these crazy ass propaganda kids books where Trump is a fucking king or whatever.
Right. It's like that's what it is he's written 3 children's books that are basically pro-Trump fan fiction. The first is called Plot Against the King, described by the publisher as a fantastical retelling of Hillary's horrible plot against Trump, and features a character named Kash, the Distinguished Discoverer, defending King Donald Trump. There's the cover right there. You see Hillary in the background, who they call Hillary Queenton, versus Donald the King.
I get it.
Oh, God. I'd be like, honestly, like this wouldn't bother me, except like this is really how they see the world. Like American politics is like a Manichean struggle between two people, as opposed to a country where 330 million people have to live and get their kids to school. So also these people's poor fucking kids being gifted these books. Like I'd rather get socks for Christmas, but that's in their fucking stockings.
Yeah, that sucks, man. It's where the wild things are. Hungry caterpillar.
Where the sidewalk ends.
Not this shit. Yeah.
Comic books. The second book in the series is called The Plot Against the King, 2,000 Mules, which is, of course, a reference to Dinesh D'Souza's documentary, which he just had to put out because of a lawsuit. He had to announce it was fake.
I was about to ask you about that because, I saw that. Yeah, because of a lawsuit, he had to, publicly announce that was all bullshit. But didn't he, just tried to bury it on his website somewhere or something? But, of course, people saw it and it got posted everywhere and it got it. But, he basically just had to acknowledge, all that data and stuff we said we had in the documentary. It's like, well, really, not actually.
Maybe
true.
He should probably address it to Rudy Giuliani and the $148 million he lost for believing it. So anyway, Ann Coulter was dunking all over Dinesh on Twitter today, so it's a fun time to be him. So the blurb on 2,000 Mules contains a, quote, terrible scheme to elect Sleepy Joe instead of King Donald on choosing day. And Plot Against the King 3, The Return of the King, the story is about the journey of the MAGA King as he returns to take down Kamala and reclaim his throne. I had a good time just imagining Laura Loomer reading these to Trump while he falls asleep.
Sucking on his tiny little thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know that these hit for him. I'm sure he's read them and thinks, well, I don't know about read them. I'm sure he's flipped through them. These presumably kids' books, they got a lot of pictures, a lot of, easily digestible kind of cartoonish images and stuff. I'm sure that, and they're mostly of Trump as a king. So these are probably some of his favorite pieces of American literature, I would imagine.
They're probably, previous to this, the one book he always kept on his shelf was Mein Kampf, so they can join it right side by side. So he also, one of the books is about, refuting the Steele dossier, which I'm sure kids want to read about Russian intelligence and P-tapes and shit. He signed 10 copies of his children's book about King Donald with the QAnon motto, where we go one, we go all, with the hashtag. The fact they're still using hashtags in 2024 depresses me. But so because he's a deep QAnon believer, what's going to happen inside FBI headquarters when he tries to put out like an Interpol red notice to have Tom Hanks extradited to stand trial for Pizzagate? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I know, man. I mean, it's wild to think. I mean, a guy like the insane shit that we know that QAnon people believe, and now this dude is in charge, or is going to be in charge of the FBI, and it's like, what is? I mean, you say something like that, and it sounds insane, but we live in the era of insanity. So, what does happen when they attempt some shit like that? It's gonna get nuts.
yeah. So, like he's he goes. He's been on a lot of QAnon podcasts and live streams and shit. And it's not that he agrees with all of it. Like he just like, let me quote here. Whether it's the Qs of the world, who I agree with some of what he does, and I disagree with some of what he does, if it allows people to gather and focus on the truth and the facts, I'm all for it. Now, he said this while one part he did believe was the QAnon conspiracy theory that the election was stolen in 2020 with Italian military satellites that turned Trump votes to Joe Biden votes in 2020.
Well, it's important to focus on the truth and the facts.
Right,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
I'm not sure why I've never really figured out why Italy would give a military satellites to Joe Biden, who wasn't in power in 2020, to swing the election to him, but whatever. It's just hilarious to me. We're going to be doing a deep state nonce hunt at a time when the government's run by half the people who got platinum status on the Lolita Express.
Right. Yeah.
This doesn't really have to do anything, but on Truth Social, he also promoted the use of pills that he said reverse the effects of COVID-19 vaccines. If you throw this ad up, Matt, he posted on Truth Social, I believe. It says, it's a spike protein recovery system. You were immune to the propaganda, but are you immune to the shedders? So they're worried about me giving them whatever's in my vaccine, I guess. He was selling this stuff.
Yeah, again, these are the people that's like, I can't put that in my body. I don't know what's in that. We don't know what's in that. We can't put that in our body or whatever. Then they'll snatch this shit up. A spike protein recovery system. It's like, well, no way, that's not legit. But yeah, it's yeah, you take this pill and it makes you immune to all the 5G that me and Mark are putting off at the Walmart or whatever when they walk by us. So you can see how it would be important to have that. But yeah, it's just
Make sure you wear a mask.
All the classic things, right? Like that, like you said, the brain pills and all that. I'm sure he's got some My Pillow fucking promo codes and all that stuff.
He so when he goes on these QAnon shows and other right-wing Steve Bannon's podcast and all that stuff to hawk his various products and merch and his books, children's books, brain COVID pills, dick pills, whatever. He wears he likes to wear beanies with his personal brand on them, which, because his name's Cash, it's K$H. Cool. So a lot of us are hoping for these people's incompetence to sort of save us, but like their incompetence is also fucking dangerous. Like one thing happened during Trump's first term, when he worked at the National Security Council. This 27-year-old American named Philip Walton was kidnapped from his family's farm they owned near Niger's border with Nigeria. And they're going to send some SEALs to go get him. And Patel was tasked with getting clearance from Nigeria, the Nigerian government, to get to use their airspace, right? For the SEALs to fly a helicopter over to get to Niger. He said they had it when they hadn't. They didn't realize till the very last minute they were about to get SEALs shot down over Nigeria. And they went and yelled at him for fucking lying, because what all he had to do was pick up a phone call and make sure they didn't get our troops killed. He was like, he said, quote, "If nobody got hurt, who the fuck cares?" I'm like, because they almost did, because you didn't even fuck up. You didn't even try. You lied.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so,
like you said, we talked about on last week's episode and other ones since the election. It's like one of the only hopes it seems like we have is that, like you said, that their incompetence can protect us from some of the worst of their designs or whatever. But that also is still bad. Like you're saying, these people, some of these are like important jobs, at least ostensibly, and just like virulent incompetency at the top of it is still bad. And it's a shame that still seems like a preferable alternative to, them competently being able to execute the things that they want to happen. So it's a sad state of affairs.
Not if you're that kidnapped farmer or a SEAL shot down by a Stinger missile by Nigerian military. So speaking of this, the incompetent stuff, Trump tried to give Patel a job at the FBI in his first term, and Bill Barr is like, fuck no, when he's Attorney General, because he's like, he has no law enforcement experience really, and the agents are not going to listen to him, right? They're just not. He can try to fire them. They have a lot of civil service protections unless they change that, and pensions and shit. But like, you can't make people not laugh at you behind your back when you're a silly moron. Okay, so here's Fox News trying to talk about our totally unfair take that is unqualified. Watch this.
Happy that you just got to believe this is the right guy for the job. By the way, they're trying to say he's not qualified. The guy's qualifications are more than enough to run this agency. Here is
there you have it. Seems pretty cut and dry to me, Mark. Pretty clear. That lady
What they have on the screen right here. What they have on the screen right here is a 2 bullet point resume made up entirely of non-Senate confirmable lick spittle jobs that Donald Trump gave him for sucking Donald Trump's dick. Those are his qualifications.
Alongside a headshot featuring prominently some of the craziest crazy eyes I've seen in a minute, by the way. That is
right.
That's
the picture.
That's Michelle Bachmann level crazy eyes right there. How about that? Blast from the past. You guys remember her? Anyway.
Yeah. It's worth noting that's the picture he'd choose for himself. Like, these people want us to think of them as totally scary when they're just buffoons, but whatever. I'm through being scared of them. They're going to do whatever they're going to do.
Well, it's like you said about the agents. You can't make the agents respect them or listen to them or whatever. And I've also said before, having worked in the federal government, that's another thing that I try to like find some measure of hope in, is knowing that, again, I worked with people, competent, smart people who knew what they were doing, who had been there for a long time and had worked through all these different regimes and all this stuff. And they just kept doing their job because they actually know how to do it. But of course, a big part of Project 2025 was ostensibly to like maliciously replace all those people with people who are just, sycophants and yes men or whatever. And obviously if that happens, it'll be different. But like you said, they have protections in place. If those people are still there, that will also have some effect in terms of mitigation of the lunatic bullshit, I think, because,
Yeah. Well, he tells the FBI hostage rescue team to go arrest Tom Hanks. They're going to like slow walk it to the fax machine, then say they couldn't find him. They say there wasn't gas in the helicopter. All that shit.
Right.
So we talked about, so far we talked about who he is basically, but let's talk about what he wants to do. Okay. Basically, he wants to be the new J. Edgar Hoover, except with a much more powerful FBI, who is going to do more stuff than like. Think about how much more effectively J. Edgar Hoover could have harassed Martin Luther King with our modern level of surveillance and drones and shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So he went on Steve Bannon's podcast. Said, quote, "We will go and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens to help Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Yeah. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly." Now, it's hard to understand what they're saying a lot of times. When they talk about election rigging, they're not just talking about flipping the machines. They're not just talking about like extending ballot access to mail-in ballots and stuff. They also mean that it's unfair to have media. It's unfair election interference to have media coverage that criticizes Donald Trump, right?
Right. Yeah. Right.
So that's how you get to a place where they're going to try to put, I don't know, fucking MSNBC lady with the show. Rachel Maddow. They could put Rachel Maddow in a camp, I guess, or try to do it.
I know that's what I said. I don't like. I'm glad me and you were so low on the totem pole. You know what I mean?
Oh, they won't get around to us. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, maybe we're easier to fuck with because I don't have any money or power, so they could they could disappear me pretty easily. Do you remember when in 2020 when black vans they're ostensibly run by DHS agents were disappearing people off the street in cities like Portland and Chicago during the protests? You ever hear any oversight about that? Anything happen?
Right. Yeah, that was wild. Wasn't one of them like a soccer mom or something like that? Like a nice, well-to-do white lady got snatched up or something. I feel like I remember. Yeah.
Do you remember when like an Antifa guy killed like a right-wing counter-protester in self-defense who had shot at him, and then Homeland Security agents showed up at his house and executed him in front of it when he hadn't drawn his weapon? And then would you remember any hearings or anything about that?
No. Well, to be fair, I mean that's pretty par for the course with any level of law enforcement in this country. Show up.
Right. But shouldn't somebody be interested?
He also shot that guy's dogs first,
right,
as protocol dictates.
Right. And so we just So the Praetorian Guard went 4 years without a leader. Now they're about to get him back, and now we're going to see who else they're going to feel like shooting, I guess.
Right.
I don't think most federal agents are like quiet professionals who just want to go to work their 9 to 6 and then have dinner with their families. I don't think they want to do this bullshit. But like, I just the extreme aversion to any sort of accountability, no matter how bad someone fucks up, is crazy to me, and I don't understand why we live in this fucking world. Speaking of people that are about to escape accountability, talking about the January 6 rioters. As FBI director, this headline here, Kash Patel could offer January 6 rioters retribution against their enemies. So, Patel was chief of staff to acting defense secretary Christopher Miller on January 6th. And he's, despite being in Washington and being a part of the administration, he's been pushing the baseless Fed-surrection conspiracy theory that the FBI, who he is maybe about to run unless somebody can stop him, his nomination and during his hearings, he thinks those agents like encouraged and organized and entrapped MAGA people to do January 6th.
Yeah, I remember that whole thing. Wasn't there a guy that was like a big MAGA dude or whatever they decided he was a Fed and like ruined his life.
Ruined his life
And everything. And him and his wife had to go live on the run and off the grid in an RV or some shit like that because of all the harassment they were getting. And he was one of their guys, but because of this theory, they determined that he was a Fed and was actually pulling the strings with everything. But yeah, I mean, it's another part. It's like I don't understand why people are attracted to these groups or these people in the first place, because like by the nature of how they are, this type of shit happens all the time. You know what I mean? All the finger pointing and backstabbing and all that stuff, like the paranoia. Like it's just part and parcel of who they are, and it's like it's the leopards eating faces party or whatever. Like eventually, your face gonna get a little bit eaten at some point, and it's like that's what you're signing up for. But yet people continue to do it because they always think the leopards are only gonna eat like our faces and never their faces. But
yeah, just capitulate one more time, they'll never come after you. So like, but anyway, like imagine like that poor guy who just was at January 6th because he loved Donald Trump and was in the background of some photos. And they concluded he was a Fed because they thought his cell phone was a badge or whatever. And then because he didn't get charged, because he wasn't one of the worst actors, they're like, well, obviously he's an undercover cop. He had to move out of his house because of all the death threats. Then also the feds did him a favor and actually charged him to try to get him off the hook with him. Didn't work, right? Mm-hmm. So like, but anyway, back to Patel. Fun little fact about him. He also helped produce. Remember that banging track where they played the January 6 rioters singing the national anthem in prison over top of Trump playing the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever.
Yeah.
It's called Justice for All. Like Patel produced that track. So he's the P. Diddy of the January 6th choir.
Nice. Well, he's already got the producer name or whatever, with the dollar sign.
Kash Patel.
Yeah.
Patel also wrote another book. I'm assuming this one wasn't a children's book. It's called Government Gangsters. The appendix of which is just an enemies list of people he wants to fucking prosecute. It's like, I don't know, a couple hundred people he thinks the FBI should lock up for their political activities. Less than ideal, I think. Biden and Kamala are both on the list, plus a bunch of other former Trump administration people, plus random like intelligence community and DOJ lawyers. Not sure what they did. I'm sure he knows. So basically we're talking about J. Edgar Hoover, blackmail and authoritarian type show trial schemes, except with the modern, panopticon digital surveillance state. So basically we're talking about J. Edgar Hoover, but with mind reading powers.
Yeah.
Which I want to direct
everyone. I never thought about that way before until you pointed that out earlier. Like all the like the whole thing you said about Martin Luther King and how the apparatus as it exists today is like insanely powerful, and putting that in the wrong hands. For example, Kash Patel's get pretty wild.
They had to know what hotel Martin Luther King was going to be staying at, get there ahead of time, arm twist the front desk person into telling them what room they're going to sign MLK. Right? Now they just have to like punch a button on a computer and hear everything he's doing on his phone. Right? So there's a new documentary out I want to recommend to everyone called Surveilled, where Ronan Farrow is part of is like the journalist behind it, but it's a 3-country investigation to the inner workings of a group called NSO Group Technologies, an Israeli company behind spyware called Pegasus. Pegasus is essentially the program Batman built at the end of The Dark Knight.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that Morgan Freeman explicitly states is wrong, and then Batman's like, "Well, I mean, but is it worth it? I think so."
Yeah. A lot of the world's governments are acquiring Pegasus and using it to spy on their own politicians and journalists, including like Spain using it and Catalan separatists and independent journalists. And the U.S. government's, the DHS is considering acquiring it, and I think we should probably ask them not to if people like Kash Patel are going to be controlling everything. What this software does, it turns your phone into a listening device or a viewing device that you're carrying around your pocket. They can basically just remotely disgorge all your text messages, even from secure apps, and turn your phone on and hear everything you're doing, and turn your camera on and watch everything you're doing.
That's
okay.
Literally the device, or whatever you want to call it, from The Dark Knight. Like, it's like they got that idea from that movie. Like, that's a good idea. We should do that.
Well, Batman also turned the phone into echolocation devices. They could see the outline of like where the Joker was, right?
Yeah, right. Because it's bat stuff. It's like sonar. You know what I mean? So
right. So, like, when the U.S. government buys stuff like this, they promise not to use it on their own citizens.
Their fingers crossed behind their back.
Right. I also don't. I mean, I understand that what they're saying is it won't be admissible in court. But I also don't think that, like, I don't want my phone turned into a listening device because I call someone overseas. And I also I don't think it's good for us to spy on, say, British, French, Canadian, Mexican journalists and their politicians necessarily. Although I know we already do that stuff. But so the part of this that I truly don't understand is Senate Republicans' reaction to this. Because, like you said, the leopard's eating face part of this. So let me quote here from this Politico story. Few GOP senators are raising early opposition to President-elect Donald Trump's pick to lead the FBI, Kash Patel. Now, it's politics. They could be like letting the process play out, acting like they have an open mind for the hearings, whatever. But like, even Susan Collins, who's usually reliable, as close as they can to a sane Senate Republican, she was outspoken against Matt Gaetz potentially becoming Attorney General, didn't immediately dismiss Patel on Monday, saying she'd need time to review his profile. Susan, I've already reviewed his profile for you. Watch this episode of Skews. And we're all locked in this hell together now for a while. And if you don't want to do everything Donald Trump wants you to do, if you want to have the space to like push back on some of his most extreme judicial nominations, or, raise a stink when he tries to invade Mexico, or today, Fox News doing segments about conquering Canada today. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Because Canada's getting put on the list. We're going to make them the 51st state or something.
Yes.
Move aside Puerto Rico. We got a new 51st state lined up. Canada coming for you because, like Melania made googly eyes at Trudeau once or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Trump posted an AI made image of him standing on a mountaintop beside a Canadian flag he planted. Now the computer generated a picture of the Swiss Alps because they don't know what Canadian mountains look like. What the fuck ever. So, Susan Collins, if you want to be able to push back against this stuff, you cannot let Kash Patel be the FBI director, because what's going to happen next is any sort of even mild rhetorical pushback. You're going to see leaked stories in the right-wing media about sex that Susan Collins' husband sent their maid or some shit.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just warning you, you're going to get a crazy right-wing FBI director no matter what. Christopher Wray is not exactly some lib softy, the guy that's already in there. You don't have to eat this shit sandwich, nor should you. Come over to the light. Fucking crush this shit. This is we'll get the other nominations. The Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, those are fucking nightmares. Pete Hegseth is apparently drinking himself out of the job already. Nice. The stories are coming out. He apparently showed up to Fox News to do hits drunk at 6 a.m. That's when his show came on. And he would be drunk already. So if Fox News is backstabbing,
Yeah, well, you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning, Mark. That's what they say.
Right.
You know.
So if
Also,
Fox
nobody
News
cares
has
when old what's her
sources-
name does it. Hoda, you know, Kathy Lee and Hoda is fucking just pounding wine on fucking
Well,
6 a.m.
Not to be all like normies, centrist normie, but I'll also be opposed to Hoda Kotb being
Being
named
the Secretary of
Defense.
yeah,
Yes.
right. Yes. Yeah, seems like a reasonable stance to me.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Who the hell knows? Like I said, it's gonna be open season on faces for all these face-eating leopards out here. We're gonna see what happens in the coming months and years. But first, hey, it's Christmas time. It's a holiday season. Everybody try to enjoy it, even if you got lunatics in your family. You know, there's still room for Christmas cheer out there here in December of 2024. All right, let's go to TreyCrowder.com. Come see me do stand up in December if you're in Northern California, Nashville, or Chicago. Otherwise, I'm coming all over the place next year, so just go to yeah. You know what
Sorry,
I mean?
I'm a
I'm
child.
doing shows.
Yes.
Anyway, yep. Come see me do stand up. TreyCrowder.com. Weeklyskews.com/more is how you get to our Patreon, support the show, get 2 extra bonus episodes a month. $5 solid is. It's a lot of fun. Either way, if you keep showing up on Skews, we will too. We'll see you in 7 days. Love you. Bye. Hang in there.
Trey's like a